Last 1 year has been truly amazing for these little guys, which are action cameras. We have the DJI Action 2, we have the GoPro Hero 10 Black, and we have the new Insta360 1RS, which is a mouthful. But yes, all of these cameras have been truly revolutionary. The action camera market has blown up in the last 1 year. Now, you guys already know I love my action cameras. More than 50% of this channel, the entire Life at Sea series, was shot on action cameras and an iPhone. I've never used an Insta360, but I hope to get my hands on it in the near future. So today I'm going to be comparing two of the best action cameras that you can buy in 2022. So if you're somebody who's about to go out and spend your money and you're confused about whether you should buy the DJI Action 2 or whether you should buy the GoPro Hero 10 Black, today I'm going to be helping you figure out which of these two cameras are going to be the right decision for you. When I normally go out and look for an action camera, there are 5 major areas that I start to look at when it comes down to the specs and the capabilities of these cameras. Photography aspect, how good the photos are, how good the videos are, how good the stabilization is, how good the time-lapse and the hyperlapses are, how rugged the camera actually is, and that's basically it. These are the 5 major categories that I talk about or I look at when I'm actually going out to buy an action camera. At the end of the day, when you're picking up a new camera, you want to see what it looks like, how it performs straight out of the box without tweaking any setting. If the camera can perform and do really well in all 5 of these categories without you messing around with the settings a little too much, you're pretty much going to get an idea about whether the camera is for you or not, and you'll also get an idea about how good the image is going to look once you actually start fine-tuning it. The first category that we look at is photography. Let me start by saying the photos that come out of these cameras is fantastic. You have to keep in mind I've used the automatic photo settings, and it's all about these automatic photo settings because you want to see how these cameras actually process the images. If you're going to go in and take photographs manually, yeah, you're going to get a fantastic image. That's exactly why I have used the standard super photo mode, which is the highest level of processing on the GoPro, and I've used JPEGs on the DJI Action 2, which is basically the processed finished image that you're going to get out of this camera with all the computational magic behind it. And immediately the first thing that all of you are going to notice is the difference in color science. First things first, color science is a personal perspective, so there's nothing right or wrong when it comes down to this. The GoPro has 3 different color profiles that you can use, and the DJI Action 2 has 2 different color profiles that you can use. For the purpose of this test, I've gone with the standard vibrant profile on the GoPro and the standard normal color profile on the DJI Action 2. If it comes down to me and you actually ask me which color profile I like better, I'm going to have to say GoPro because I think GoPro has just come a longer way with improving their color. I'm currently vlogging this on the DJI Action 2, which is right here, and the GoPro Hero 10 Black, and this is primarily why I own both of these cameras. The main reason why I got into the world of action cameras is basically because I needed to vlog my life at sea, document life at sea, and document life in general. And I think these cameras are fantastic to do that because they're such tiny setup. They have pretty decent microphones, and they also have stabilization, which at this moment is on both these cameras. The DJI Action 2 has Rocksteady 2, which is fantastic according to me. It's improved massively from Rocksteady 1, and the GoPro Hero 10 Black now has Hypersmooth 4, which is truly amazing. I'm currently in a hotel in Bombay and I'm using these cameras. The GoPro's on the wide lens and the DJI is on the ultra wide field of view. I think they're doing a great job. It basically comes down to personal perspective, what you guys like better. Also, this is a quick audio test on the Hero 10 Black. This is what the audio sounds like. I have a waterfall over here. So I basically have that in front of me. There should be a lot of background noise. There's a little bit of wind and I have a mask on. So Hero 10 Black audio test. And now this is an audio test on the DJI Action 2. I am using the DJI Action 2 with the attached dual screen mod. Also, the waterfall is still here. There is a little bit of wind and I have a mask on. So this is the audio that you will get out of these setups. You can add external mics to both these cameras to improve your audio. That is a massive possibility and it's going to improve your overall quality as well. Alright, so we already know these cameras perform fantastically outside in good lighting, which is where I'm at right now. What's really important is to see the dynamic range of these cameras. So I'm going to shoot a couple of clips in this beautiful location where I'm standing right now, just so that you guys can get an idea of how these cameras perform where there's harsh light and the dynamic range is continuously changing. As you guys can see, I'm in the sun right now. How is the dynamic range? So we're going to test that out in a few seconds, and after that we're going to head back into the studio to see how these cameras perform indoors, because I know a lot of people want to pick up these cameras as their main YouTube cameras, and you may have to use these cameras indoors. Okay, so this is an indoor test using both of these cameras. I'm currently filming on the DJI Action 2, whose lens I'm looking into right now. That is also the audio that you can hear at the moment. This camera is at 4K 24 frames per second. I'm using the internal microphones, no external mics. I have no artificial light on me at this given point in time, and it's basically what it is right now. This is the image that you get out of it. Auto exposure, auto white balance, 24 frames per second. Now I'm currently filming also on the Gopro Hero 10 Black. This is 5.3K at 24 frames per second, auto exposure, auto white balance, no external artificial light on me, and the audio is from the GoPro itself. Yes, the GoPro can do 5.3K at up to 30 frames per second. It can also do 4K at up to 120 frames per second, and the audio from the GoPro is what you're listening to right now. And the DJI can go up to 4K 120 frames per second, but unfortunately there isn't any 5K or 5.3K option. Again, this is the exact same lighting, it's auto exposure, and you guys can see how both the cameras are framing me up. Overall, 4K 120 frames per second is a major game changer for both of these cameras. I honestly believe that both of these cameras can do such amazing frame rates and resolutions that it is truly mind-blowing. My Fujifilm camera that I was filming on a couple of seconds ago can't shoot at 120 frames per second in anything above 1080p. So yeah, these frame rates are fantastic. I think another advantage that GoPro has is it can not only do 4K at 120 frames per second, which the DJI can pretty much match, it can also do 5.3K at 60 frames per second, which I think barely any camera on the market, irrespective of type of camera or size or image quality or sensor size, can actually match. 5.3K at 60 frames per second is completely nuts. So yeah, when it comes down to slow motion, the GoPro has a slightly better option, but a lot of people are probably not going to be using that 5.3K because a lot of computers cannot handle that frame rate and that codec. That being said, the option is fantastic and the image quality is completely mind-blowing. So this was the indoor test. I know a lot of people want to go out and buy their GoPros and their DJI cameras and use them as their permanent full throttle main YouTube cameras. You want to use it for vlogging outdoors, which these cameras are fantastic for. You want to use it for action sports. You want to use it for time lapses, and you may want to sit and talk to the camera while you're indoors in your studio and have one tiny camera to do everything for you. So this is the image quality that you will get indoors. I do have a window here and there's a large amount of natural light coming my way. So this is what it's going to look like. If you do add some artificial light and you can match the white balance, you can really fine tune the image to make it look even better. But this is all automatic at the moment. Jump into time lapses as well as hyperlapses, which I think is fantastic that both of these cameras can actually do. Both of these cameras can shoot time lapses and hyperlapses in 4K, which is fantastic. They both have the 4:3 aspect ratio and ultra wide lenses, so you're going to be able to capture a lot of everything when you're shooting time lapses on these. The details are crisp, the colors are fantastic. When it comes down to hyperlapses, both of these cameras do a fantastic job. A hyperlapse is basically a moving time lapse where you move with the camera, and a time lapse is basically where your camera is stationary and it's capturing and compressing time, giving you a really fast preview of what's happening around you. So a hyperlapse requires stabilization, whereas a time-lapse does not. And I'm happy to tell you that the DJI Action 2 has the new stabilization mode, which is Rocksteady 2, and it's performed fantastically. I think this camera's stabilization is improved massively, and it has come almost at par with Hypersmooth. Hypersmooth, on the other hand, is the best electronic stabilization that you can get on any action camera on the market, according to me. We are on the 4th generation of Hypersmooth, and it does a fantastic job. Now, one place when it comes down to time lapses and hyperlapses where GoPro does win is basically when it comes down to night lapses. Night lapse mode is inbuilt into the GoPro, which is pretty much automatic, which means you can set up your GoPro, hit night lapse, and it's going to start recording the entire night view, and it's going to form an amazing night lapse for you, all automatic. The DJI Action 2 can capture the night sky and it can do night lapses, but there's no dedicated night lapse mode. There's no preset pre-made within this camera, which basically means you're going to have to go in, adjust your shutter speed as well as your ISO, and you're going to have to fine tune that image so that it can produce a similar image as the GoPro does. The GoPro is just one step easier because it has a pre-made preset for you, which is going to be fantastic. You can just pick it up if you don't know anything about cameras, leave it on night lapse mode, and everything's going to work automatically for you. We're now looking at the rugged ability of both these cameras, their overall form factors, and how well built they are. Now, when it comes down to the form factor, I think DJI is a clear winner. It's a brand new design, brand new mounting system. It's magnetic, it's well built, and it definitely feels a lot more premium than the GoPro actually does. This is also smaller and a lot more portable than the GoPro. DJI does weigh just by a little bit. The GoPro on the other hand is a bit heavier. Now when you're talking about iteration to iteration, GoPros have increased their size, whereas DJI has pretty much decreased their size and changed their overall form factor. While the DJI does feel a lot more premium and it does look a lot more premium, pretty rugged in its own right, but when you come down to the GoPro, it is still a small camera. It's bigger than the DJI, but it is smaller than 99% of the cameras on the market. It is really well built. It's one piece, whereas the DJI has multiple mods, and while it's not as premium looking or feeling as the DJI, it still feels and looks like a GoPro, so there's no losing on that front. GoPros are something that I've always loved, and I actually like the feel and look of it. This is single body, it's one piece, and there are no mods that can detach. It just gives me a lot more confidence in every scenario that I would use this camera. Whereas the DJI Action 2, depending on the velocity and depending on what you're doing, you may end up damaging this camera, or at least I feel like I may end up damaging this camera. So there are a lot of scenarios where I just end up reaching for the GoPro over the DJI, which just gives me a lot more confidence. Furthermore, GoPro's lens that you guys can see is removable, which basically means if you drop this camera, you're not going to have any issues because you can just replace the lens if you crack it. DJI screens as well as lens are fully exposed, and yeah, that was a winning point for the DJI OSMO Action a couple of years ago. They pretty much went backwards on that front. You can't replace this lens, and if you do end up damaging it and dropping it, you have to send this back to DJI to get it repaired or replaced. It's going to be really hard. So overall, when it comes down to which camera feels more premium, I'm going to say the DJI, but when it comes down to how rugged these cameras are, which camera I would reach for in every scenario, it's the GoPro. Finally, we've already seen how these cameras perform with respect to their stabilization. I did do a vlog test outdoors. That's how I use these cameras. I did a jog test on these cameras. I think they've performed really well. So overall, the stabilization on both these cameras is really good. You really don't have too much to worry about. Both Hyper Smooth as well as Rocksteady have come to a point where they're very mature. They're going to get you through 99% of your scenarios, and they both are going to suffer in low light, so you want to keep that in mind. Electronic stabilization requires good lighting for it to function, for the algorithms to kick in, for the camera to be able to analyze what you're doing and basically stabilize the clip that you're shooting. So keep that in mind, and as long as you shoot in good lighting, these cameras will not let you down when it comes down to the stabilization. So we finally run through all the 5 categories that I look at before you actually go out and pick up an action camera, and I think both of these cameras, while their form factors are completely different, the software that they use is completely different, the brands are different, they look and feel really different, I think they've performed in such a way that they come really close. Overall, both of these cameras are very evenly spec'd. The GoPro has a couple of edges over the DJI, but the DJI still feels a lot more premium, and that's exactly why the decision to go out and buy an action camera and try to figure out where you want to put in your money, which ecosystem you like better, is really hard. I've seen all the sample footage and the sample images and the stabilization, and we've talked about a bunch of things. There's a couple of things you want to keep in mind before you actually go out and buy into one of these ecosystems. The GoPro has a battery that can be replaced on the go. The batteries are super cheap, and an SD card plugs in straight into this device. So the GoPro is a one-piece action camera that you're gonna buy. When it comes down to the DJI Action 2, this camera is fantastic and it's super modular, but you have to keep in mind that the main camera module has only 32 gigabytes of storage on the inside. The battery is pretty weak. You will need a mod with it at all times, and I think this is where the GoPro wins out, because when you attach a mod to it, it's also a lot more fragile. It can open up, even though this mounting system is really great. There is a possibility it'll open up, whereas in the GoPro, it's one body, one design, and the GoPro is waterproof like this, but the DJI Action 2 is not waterproof in this state. Now, while both these cameras do have very similar mounting systems, they both work with your standard action camera feed. DJI just gives you a lot more options and flexibility with this new magnetic module system, and if you don't want to use the standard action camera mounting feed, DJI has their own ecosystem of mounts that you can use, which are really innovative. There's a really cool lanyard, there's a bunch of stick-on mount which can be used magnetically, and I think overall DJI's ecosystem just gives you additional options. Also, when it comes down to the field of view that both these cameras can shoot, the DJI is 155 degrees field of view. It's really great, it's super wide. When it comes down to its digital lenses, you have your ultra wide mode, you have your standard D-warp and your standard mode, which is okay. You have a couple of crops that you can make to the sensor to adjust your field of view, but the GoPro has a lot more options in the form of digital lenses, where it's going to be able to crop into your sensor and give you a different focal length to essentially shoot at, which basically makes this a little bit more versatile in a lot of scenarios, because you don't always want to be filming in that ultra wide warpy look at all times. Also, if you're somebody who has a computer that can actually handle 5K, the higher resolution, you can shoot at 5 5.3K at up to 60 frames per second, whereas this caps out at 4K 120 frames per second. This is probably going to heat up a lot faster because it's smaller, so when you are shooting 4K 120, this will probably last you a little bit longer than this. So you have to keep these things in mind, and you have to think about how you're going to use these cameras, what features you're going to need, what specs you're going to need, and that's exactly when you're going to be able to make the right decision for you. So while I said these cameras come super close and the decision is going to be yours, I still need to conclude what I think about which camera is better for most people. And honestly, in my personal opinion, I think that GoPro Hero 10 Black is a clear winner. It's still the king. This is DJI's second action camera, and while they've come a long way, I still believe that the GoPro has come so many years into manufacturing these cameras that they have actually learned the formula to give you a well-rounded oiled machine, and that's what the GoPro Hero 10 is. The GoPro 10 comes in the box just like this, and that's all you pretty much need. You can replace the batteries, you can replace the lens, you can throw in an SD card into this, and you don't have to think about adding mods at all times. This alone can perform as well as this does with a mod on. And I also believe with the fact that this has a replaceable lens, and if you live in India, you can pretty much get that lens on Amazon, and if you live anywhere in the world, you can pretty much get that lens on any online store, any camera store, and not gonna have an issue. So like I said, for me, it's the Hero 10 Black. I think it's the clear king, but that being said, if you do prefer the Action 2, you like the form factor, you like how premium it looks, I think you're definitely gonna have a fantastic experience, because this in itself is also a really great camera. Let me know which camera you're gonna go out and buy, and which camera really spoke to you in this video, what image you like better, and why you're actually gonna go out and buy it. Also, let me know how you're gonna use it, because I love knowing this about people. I think it's really cool to see what other people use and what they create with it. So if you have a YouTube channel, also drop a link in description so I can go check it out. I hope you enjoyed this video and it brought you some value and it helped make your purchasing decision a lot easier. If it did, definitely give this video a thumbs up, because it's gonna really help out the channel, and I can't wait to come back with more videos for you guys using both these action cameras. Thanks for watching. Peace.